The sun rose radiantly over the ancient city of Thebes, illuminating the vibrant streets brimming with life. Khalid, a young scribe with dark hair and curious eyes, sat at a small wooden table in a corner of the scribe school. The aroma of papyrus and fresh ink enveloped the space as his master, an elderly man with a gray beard, spoke about the myths that shaped Egyptian culture. Record everything, Khalid. Every legend, every story. They are the soul of our people, the master instructed, gesturing with his hands. However, Khalid felt trapped between the pages of the scrolls. The tales of gods and heroes excited his imagination, but the monotonous routine left him restless. "I wish I could live one of these adventures, master," Khalid murmured, his dreamy eyes fixed on a window overlooking the horizon. "To be a hero, to fight against the forces of evil. Not every adventure is glorious, young one. Often, what seems like a calling is, in fact, a burden," the master replied, his voice heavy with wisdom. Khalid sighed, knowing the master's words held truth, but the flame of curiosity burned intensely within him. That morning after class, Khalid decided to visit the local market. The voices of the vendors echoed through the air, mingling with the scent of spices and fresh fruits. As he wandered among the stalls, something glimmered in an antique shop. It was an amulet, an object that seemed to pulse with an inexplicable energy. Khalid approached it, and upon touching the amulet, his vision was engulfed by a terrifying scene. Osiris, the god of life after death, falling before his brother Seth, the god of destruction, in an act of betrayal. "Did you see that?" a soft voice asked beside him. It was Nefertari, his beloved, who had joined him in the market. Her eyes sparkled with a mix of concern and curiosity. "Yes, I saw Osiris being murdered. Nefertari, I feel that I have been chosen for something greater," Khalid replied, adrenaline coursing through his body. He explained the vision, and Nefertari's expression grew serious. "You must seek the truth, Khalid. We need to find Anubis. He can help us understand what is happening," Nefertari suggested, her fearless spirit reflected in her words. Khalid nodded, determined. Together, they set off in search of the wise Anubis, aware that they were about to embark on a journey that would change their lives forever. Khalid and Nefertari approached the imposing pyramid, its edges adorned with hieroglyphs that told stories of a long-lost era. The setting sun cast long, dramatic shadows as the young scribe felt adrenaline pulsing through his veins. Upon entering the structure, an atmosphere of mystery and reverence enveloped them. The echo of their footsteps seemed to reverberate through time, as if the ancestors were watching over them. Inside, they found Anubis waiting at an altar illuminated by flickering torches. The god, with the head of a jackal and a piercing gaze, emanated an aura of wisdom and power. "Khalid, Nefertari," he greeted with a deep, resonant voice. "You have come in search of answers, but know that the journey you have chosen is fraught with unimaginable dangers." With determination, Khalid asked, "Anubis, we need to know how to resurrect Osiris. What must we do?" The god of the dead fixed his gaze on Khalid, as if weighing the gravity of his words. "The return of Osiris depends not only on a spell, but on the courage that resides in your hearts. To invoke the god, you must confront the fears that lurk in the shadows." Anubis extended his hand and, in a solemn gesture, handed Khalid an aged papyrus. "Here is the spell you will need. But remember, the path will be tortuous, and Seth will not allow you to proceed without a fight." With the spell in hand, Khalid and Nefertari exchanged glances. There was a mix of anxiety and hope. "We are ready, Anubis," Nefertari declared. "We will not give up." The god nodded, his expression softening. "Then may the gods guide you." After the ceremony, Khalid began to chant the words of the spell, feeling the mystical energy pulsate around him. In an instant, the reality around them began to distort, and a blinding light enveloped them. Khalid felt his body being pulled into an unknown space, as a sensation of falling surrounded him. He was about to enter the underworld, where Osiris's fate and the truth about death awaited him. When the light finally faded, Khalid found himself in a vast, dark hall, where souls were judged by Ma'at, the goddess of truth. The voices echoed, blending into a symphony of laments and hopes. And there, at the center of the tribunal, was Osiris, his serene countenance marked by deep fatigue. "Khalid," he called, his voice echoing like a whisper in the wind. "You came in search of answers, but you know that the victory over Seth will not be easy. What are you willing to sacrifice for me to return?" Khalid, overwhelmed by the gravity of the situation, responded fervently, "I will do whatever it takes. I won't let your sacrifice be in vain." The eyes of Osiris shone with gratitude, but also with the sadness of reality. "Then prepare yourself, young scribe. The truth is a powerful weapon, but also a curse." Upon returning to the world of the living, Khalid felt an uneasiness in his chest. His determination was strong, but the shadow of Seth loomed over him. The god of chaos had always been one step ahead, and Khalid knew that every move he made would be watched. "Nefertari," he murmured, "Seth knows of our quest. We must be cautious." Nefertari, who had always been the voice of reason, looked into Khalid's eyes. "We cannot retreat. The truth we seek is greater than our lives. Together, we will face Seth and whatever may come." Khalid nodded, Nefertari's courage fueling his own resolve. The battle was just beginning, and they were ready to fight for Osiris and for a future that could still be shaped. Khalid, Nefertari, and Anubis gathered at a small oasis, far from curious eyes and lurking dangers. The sun blazed in the sky as the hot sand accumulated around them, creating both a beautiful and threatening scene. Anubis, with his black cloak billowing, fixed his gaze on the two young ones. "We need to find the heart of Anubis," he said, his voice deep and echoing like the murmur of an underground river. "Without it, we cannot resurrect Osiris." Khalid nodded, his heart pounding with determination. "Where can we find it, Anubis?" "The heart of Anubis is hidden in the Cave of Shadows, guarded by mystical creatures and traps that only a true bearer of light can overcome," the god replied, his penetrating gaze assessing Khalid's courage. Nefertari, holding Khalid's hand, added, "We are ready, Anubis. Together, we can face any challenge. Love and faith will guide us." Anubis smiled faintly, a rare expression of approval. "Then let's go. Time is short, and Seth must already be aware of our quest." The trio set off toward the cave, the sand beneath their feet transforming into an arid and desolate desert. As they approached the entrance, a supernatural chill enveloped them. Shadows danced along the rocky walls, and a whisper seemed to echo, as if the cave itself were alive. "Be careful," Anubis warned, his voice now a dark foreboding. "The creatures guarding this place are not of the world of the living." Suddenly, a winged creature with glowing eyes and sharp claws emerged from the shadows. Khalid instinctively stepped in front of Nefertari. "I will face this," he declared, his heart racing. "No, Khalid!" Nefertari shouted, but it was too late. The creature attacked, and Khalid dodged, searching for a way to defeat it. He remembered a phrase Anubis had mentioned about the importance of light. "I invoke the light of Osiris." Khalid shouted, raising his hands. Light emanated from him, causing the creature to hesitate. However, at the same time, a feeling of distrust began to spread among them. After defeating the creature, they sat down to catch their breath. "We need to trust each other," Anubis cautioned, looking at Khalid and Nefertari. "Seth will use any weakness to bring us down." Anubis's words hung in the air, but Nefertari, in a moment of vulnerability, looked at Khalid with a mix of fear and determination. "Khalid, there's something I need to tell you," she began, her voice trembling. "I am a descendant of Seth. This lineage, it haunts me." Khalid stared at her, shock coursing through his body. "What are you saying?" He stepped back, the weight of betrayal heavy on his heart. "How could you not tell me this before?" "I didn't know," Nefertari exclaimed, tears in her eyes. "I always wanted to do good, and you are the only reason I still fight against my fate." Tension grew between them, and Khalid felt distrust taking root in his heart. How can I trust you when part of your essence comes from the one who wants to destroy us? The cave, silent and sinister, became the stage for a deep emotional conflict. As the echoes of the past surrounded them, the future of their souls hung in the balance. The atmosphere was thick with the distrust that loomed over the three of them. Khalid, heart racing, observed Nefertari and Anubis, both visibly shaken by her revelation. However, the silence was brutally interrupted by a distant roar echoing through the cave walls, followed by shadows that approached rapidly. With a determined look, Anubis raised his hand. "Get ready. Seth will not leave us in peace," he shouted, his voice resonating with the authority of a god. Seth's agents emerged, hooded figures moving like serpents in the dim light. Khalid, his heart racing, brandished his dagger, the metal glinting in the soft light of the torches. "Nefertari, stay close to me," he ordered, feeling the urgency of the situation. They fought bravely. Khalid delivered precise strikes, while Nefertari moved gracefully, using the skills she had learned in her childhood. However, in the heat of battle, a treacherous blow struck Anubis, who fell to the ground, injured. The scene felt like a punch to Khalid's gut as he screamed. Anubis, desperate, he lunged toward the god, but Seth's agents seemed to multiply, attacking him with fury. "We can't fail now," Nefertari shouted, dodging an attack and landing a precise blow on one of the enemies. "We need to retreat," Anubis managed to whisper, the pain evident on his face. "You must find the Eye of Horus on your own." I can't go on." Khalid felt despair rising within him, his mind racing with the possibility of losing his mentor and friend. "Anubis, no. You are our guide. This is what Seth desires, but you must go. I will protect you here, but the mission is yours," Anubis declared, his voice firm despite his weakness. With tears in their eyes, Khalid and Nefertari pulled away, determination burning in their hearts. "We will succeed, Anubis. We won't leave you behind," Khalid promised as they made their way to the temple where they believed the Eye of Horus was hidden. After a long journey, they arrived at a temple covered in vines and sand, almost hidden by time. "This must be it," Nefertari said, looking on with hope. However, as soon as they entered, a chilling presence made itself known. Seth appeared, his malicious smile illuminating the dark surroundings. "Do you really think you could defeat me so easily?" Seth mocked, his voice echoing off the temple walls. Khalid felt fear creeping into his body, but decided to confront the god of betrayal. "We are here to rescue Osiris, Seth. We won't let you stop us." And thus, the confrontation began. Khalid invoked the spell Anubis had taught him, an ancient energy pulsing through his veins. But Seth, agile and treacherous, dodged, laughing at the attempt. "You were just described, Khalid. What can you do against a god?" Khalid felt frustration building. "I am more than that. I will fight for what is right." The battle intensified, but with every move Seth made, Khalid felt the weight of defeat closing in, his hope fading along with the light emanating from the Eye of Horus, which was so close yet still out of reach. Khalid walked across the hot sand of the desert, feeling the weight of frustration in his heart. The defeat against Seth still echoed in his mind, and he needed Nefertari. He found her under the shade of a palm tree, her gaze lost on the horizon. As he approached, he noticed the sadness on her face, a sadness he shared. "Nefertari," he began, his voice thick with emotion, "I feel like I've failed. The Eye of Horus was so close, and I couldn't protect it." She turned slowly, her eyes shimmering with contained tears. "Khalid, it's not your fault. Seth is cunning and powerful. Blame should not be a burden we carry alone." "But you don't understand," he insisted, frustration spilling over. "I have to do this, not just for Osiris, but for us, for everything we believe in." Nefertari took a deep breath, trying to gather her own emotions. "What if what you seek is more complicated than we imagined? You know, my lineage can be seen as a curse. What will happen when all this ends?" He stepped closer, taking her hand. "I don't see your lineage as a curse. I see it as a part of who you are. Together, we can overcome this. The love we share cannot be destroyed by our pasts." She smiled faintly, but insecurity still lingered. What if I am the reason you cannot resurrect Osiris? What if I am the key to your destruction? You are the reason for my strength, Nefertari, he replied, his voice steady. If there is anything to fear, it is separation. We need to believe in each other. Only then can we face Seth and finish what we started. Anubis, observing from a distance, approached, interrupting the delicate moment. I understand that love is a powerful force, but we need to act. The feather of Maat is the next artifact we seek. Truth and justice are essential to defeat Seth. Khalid nodded, feeling determination swell within him. We're ready, Anubis. Let's find the feather and stop Seth before it's too late. As the trio prepared for their journey, the weight of destiny pressed heavily on Khalid's shoulders. He knew the battle was far from over, but the strength of his love for Nefertari and Anubis's wisdom illuminated his path. What once felt like a solitary mission was now a collective effort, with each of them playing a vital role. The future of Egypt depended on their actions. The atmosphere was thick with tension and mystery at the dark altar where Khalid, Nefertari, and Anubis stood face to face with Seth. The altar, adorned with ancient symbols, emanated an unsettling energy, as if time itself had come to a standstill. Khalid gripped the feather of Maat tightly, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Morning light filtered through storm clouds, creating a dramatic contrast between the altar's darkness and the hope they carried. It's now or never, Khalid said, his voice steady but tinged with a hint of anxiety. Nefertari, standing beside him, took a deep breath, her eyes blazing with determination. We're ready, Khalid. Together, we can defeat him. Seth stood before the altar, laughing derisively. You think you can stop me? You are mere mortals, insignificant before a god. He raised his arms, summoning dark forces that danced around him, forming grotesque shadows. Don't underestimate the power of love and truth. Nefertari retorted, her ancestry pulsing through her veins. With a gesture, she began to invoke the strength of Osiris, murmuring words that echoed like an ancestral chant. The energy around her began to shift, and a golden light started to shine, enveloping her. The presence of Osiris was palpable, and Khalid felt a surge of courage flood his being. Seth, your reign of terror ends here. He raised the feather of Maat, which shone brightly, reflecting Nefertari's light. In the name of truth, I command you to retreat. The battle commenced. Seth sent his shadows to attack them, but Nefertari's light easily dispelled the darkness. Her ancestral power seemed to surprise even Seth, who hesitated for a moment. You can't be. Seth's lineage cannot be used against me, he shouted, his voice filled with despair. With each word from Nefertari, the light grew stronger, and the shadows weakened, while Khalid moved closer. The fear you have of us is your true weakness, Seth. He advanced, the feather of Maat in his hand like a sacred sword. In a final attempt, Seth tried to strike a blow, but the light of Osiris enveloped the altar, and a wave of energy hit him squarely. The dark god fell to his knees, his form slowly fading away. I am what you fear, he screamed, his voice echoing as he vanished into the shadows. With Seth's defeat, a radiant light illuminated the altar, and the figure of Osiris began to materialize. He looked at Khalid and Nefertari, his eyes filled with gratitude. You, who defied death and fear, have restored the balance I so desperately needed. Now, you are the guardians between the worlds. Khalid and Nefertari exchanged a glance, understanding the depth of their new responsibilities. The cycle of life, death, and rebirth had been restored, and hope began to shine over Egypt once more. Together, always, Nefertari whispered, as Khalid nodded, determined to protect the legacy they had fought to reclaim.